We've shared our first experiences with HTC's next flagship. Will the U11 help this company rebuild? Is Apple giving up on the iPad mini? Maybe Steve Jobs was right about smaller tablets after all. And we'll take a closer look at Google Lens announced at Google I/O, so make sure you're charged and ready for episode 253 of the Pocketnow Weekly. Recorded Wednesday night, 9:45 p.m. on the West Coast, this weekly podcast is where we dissect and discuss those gadgets that make our lives mobile. Smartphones, tablets, and wearables. It's all the stuff you wished existed when you were a kid, and lenses were things that you used to use to melt your action figures with. I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell, senior editor at Pocketnow.com, blasting this signal from a late night Southern California, joined this week by plucky podcast producer Mr. Jules Wong, who's still out on location around the New York area. How's it going out on the East Coast, buddy boy?
Hey, hopefully the wind isn't cutting me out and the noise isn't cutting me out, and hopefully I don't have to be cut out of this segment just like I was cut out of Joel's segment. I really wanted to talk with him for a little bit about that U11, but unfortunately you'll have to get in with the right kind of people in order to do that.
Yeah, Jules is giving us a little time travel, as we'll be bringing on a special guest at the second half of this podcast to talk about the HTC U11.
You give yourself a discount because you say it's 9:45 Pacific time. You have to remind yourself that it's also 12:45.
I don't need to remind myself. I know exactly what time it is out on the East Coast, which is this was not my choosing to record the podcast at this time. That was the combination of the two East Coasters, I should say, who needed to record on a Wednesday night at midnight their time. So
this is not ideal for me either. I got plans tomorrow that span the whole damn day, and between that and I/O, which we'll talk about in just a second.
Yes, we will.
That has been a major upper of what's been going on in my life. So apologies for all of this. We'll try and get back on track here as best as we can. But before we get to that, do want to remind you that we still would like your feedback on everything that is mobile tech. We want your questions. So send them over to podcast@pocketnow.com. You can do that through email. Just send a few questions over. Hey, send a million. We'll get to them as soon as possible. And also that PN Weekly hashtag, that's also pretty useful for us too, because we'll be able to go through any sort of, shorter, I guess, questions during the span as well.
All right. So on that note, let's jump right into some news. I'm going to switch over to a website
let's
view
jump
here.
Let's jump right into the website view. That does not mean that my microphone is falling off of a bench. So that's going to be lovely once you try to edit that out. But I'm just going to go on and charge on because we're professionals. Let's pretend to be, at least. So I/O happened. Today was the big day that it started. And start off with the big keynote. One of the main features that was teased out from, AI. That's what we want to go through. Sundar Pichai. His last two letters of his name is AI. It's important to him as well. And he's been going through all the server backside issues, to make these services possible. And one of those services is Google Lens. And that basically comes up to a Bixby Vision kind of competitor. So it's going up right against Samsung. It has the power to do so, I would think, and the ingenuity. It's just about incorporating that kind of thing of visualizing all these data plots on objects that your camera sees and then putting them to good use. So we put it to Google Assistant. Instant translation, of course. Now, we already have instant translation, but it's getting wrapped into Google Assistant so that you can actually build upon what's going on there. So if you're looking for like a translation to this food sign, and you want to ask what is that wakame? What is wakame about? You'll find out through another Google search. Hey, Google Assistant, what's going on with wakame? Oh, look, it's seaweed, I think. So there you go. Other sort of issues going in, Google Photos, there's shared albums as well. There's a whole bunch of integrations that you can check on at pocketnow.com for that. As we move on for the rest of the news, we also see that the Galaxy Note 8 is going to be the best phone ever. Isn't that always the thing? Anyways, dual camera potentials are climbing ever so slightly higher with another report today from, I believe, it's just, I guess it's just a Chinese source. So, it's Korea Herald. Excuse me about that. We have 3 times zoom. So pretty much like the iPhone 7 Plus, it had a dual camera module going on there with 2 times zoom on the second lens. So 3 times. I don't know. Is that going to make any difference in terms of getting a clearer, sharper image that much closer? We'll have to see what we're playing with. And over to our next story here, which is about that iPad mini, that sort of in between the iPhone Plus size, so 5.5 inches, and then we also have the standard 9.7-inch iPad. And between that, nothing has really gone in between since the iPad mini 4. Which was, I believe, a 2015 model. We did get a refresh of memory options this year, but unlike, we don't have any developments since that. I mean, that's a pretty minor iteration. And when we're talking about 12.9-inch iPad Pros and even a 10.5-inch iPad Pro rumored to come along soon, it's not really boding well. There's rumors or talk from a source in Apple that this is not, it's basically being eaten out of its size category, and we'll have to see what happens. Maybe it's gone. Maybe it'll get a complete revamp. We don't know at this point. We would like to find out, so hopefully there's
So
a
someone
coming
please
up
tell
soon.
us what's going on.
I'm not pulling out my hair about it because I have my hands
No.
full. So look at me. Oh man, this is crazy. Verizon, it's not good. It's doing terrible at supporting devices. So LG, I in an earlier take of our podcast, we talked about the LG Watcher Bane second edition LTE and how that was a failure at launching because it was pulled out by LG for some reason. We never really got the reason. This time, it's the opposite side, the carrier side of things. Verizon said it would it would carry the LG Watch Sport, the LTE version for Verizon. We don't know why it has dropped it, but that's the word. It has just gone. So all you get now is an AT&T version and an unlocked, I guess, version or Bluetooth. To say at the least, this is a disappointing news for Verizon users who are into the smartwatch thing. And Verizon has been, it's been behind the ball in terms of IoT, kind of pushing that kind of deal. So we'll have to see where that goes. Finally, Legend of Zelda coming into the smartphone field. Yeah, we're pretty happy about what it already has done for the Switch, the Nintendo Switch, but it seems that that's not far enough. We're going to have to go a little bit further for its 25th birthday, and that means more coming in next year. So 2018. Well, actually, there's going to be a limited show starting around the holidays, but it'll come fully in 2018. We don't have any real detail about the game itself, just that it's happening. So there's something to cheer about, right?
Yeah. So long as that the Zelda move for smartphones isn't just like a run and jump link game like Mario was.
Now, you're going to have to really parse that out because mm, smartphones have never really been built for that kind of, like, you have the, I know you're a fan of Future Fight from Marvel,
Right.
and I've been passed along several releases since then about, Future Fight 2 and all that stuff. But, it's kind of free. Well, it's a roaming course game. It lets you go along and fight actual goons and stuff, and that's cool. I mean, it's hard to imagine a free roaming game, a Zelda-esque kind of deal going on the smartphone, because that requires a lot more polygon and render distance and all that stuff going on. Even with Vulkan, I'm not even sure. Um,
I
it,
still think that there's an opportunity for Nintendo to. So I think Zelda would be a game that would translate very well if you were to take sort of a graphics repolish of the original top-down map panel Legend of Zelda. And I think there's an opportunity there for some of those older titles to kind of get that modern day, sprucing up. And I think they would actually translate really well to a smartphone
I
experience.
mean,
Because you're
I
right.
mean,
If
you
we
could
were to
get a
take even just like
developer.
the N64 Zelda, that wouldn't work at all. But
Yeah.
there are other incarnations like Game Boy style incarnations of Zelda that I think people would love to play on a phone directly without having to use an emulator.
But is Nintendo fighting? Well, there's that, but is Nintendo really fighting those devs who are creative and want to do that kind of thing, reskin HD and just go for that kind of thing, or is it just concerned more about going with the verticals it is dealt with and just being able to make money off of that? I mean, we've seen it in several iterations. I don't know if you've done Fire Emblem yet, but
I
it
haven't, no.
like that sort of story does lend well to the smartphone kind of RPGs do. It's
Well,
just the
I think
limit.
there are RPG things. I also wouldn't put it outside the realm of possibility of some sort of like Zelda world building game or something like that. Again, taking the IP and maybe it's not a direct translation of what Nintendo might consider competing against their console solutions. Maybe it's a watered down gaming experience, but it's still set within the world of Zelda. I just mean, the Super Mario Run thing was novel and kind of interesting for a minute, and I don't need another run and jump game. That's not what I wanted
I
from a
know.
Mario title. So I just
I
hope it's
mean,
not that.
it's kind of a countervailing of expectations where you kind of just expect, okay, so it's in mobile and this is probably the best they can modify it to fit, to actually be enjoyable. While you're in a kind of a smartphone gaming situation, you don't have much time or something like that. Whereas if you don't want to be left disappointed if they do try to how shall we say it, full ass, something like that,
Right.
and then have it be an experience where it's just, um, it ends up being choppy or jarred because of how it has to be delivered per,
Totally.
mobility, smartphones and whatnot. I mean, yeah, it's totally, totally different.
So
But
I also wanted to
yeah,
kind of track back to Google Lens for just a minute too.
something
Um,
into my depth, finally.
well, but I mean, just like it's funny. We're gonna call this like a Bixby competitor, but isn't this just getting Google back to where we were with the early camera experiments with Google goggles and the other apps that were trying to scan images and do visual search directly from our phones? I mean, Google has dipped their toe into this type of solution a number of times since Android has been
I
released.
mean, I think it's just convenience kind of merging of announcements because, Sundar Pichai was all about talking about TPMs, don't time or TDMs, time division multiplexes, which, if you can explain that to me, I know, it's used in CDMA situations, but there's just a whole bunch of, it's all about having the servers be capable of handling the what Google Lens wants to do. And I think in the earlier cases, it was kind of a case built situation where you
Right.
had these servers set up for that situation. Whereas, okay, let's have all the Google servers be able to just, we'll just plant these boards in, and then everyone can do Lens everywhere and just have it accessible from the assistant. So I don't know. It's an announcement of convenience.
Yeah, I guess maybe that was what was holding Goggles back originally was that back end infrastructure for moving images and doing that kind of processing as efficiently and as quickly as possible. It's just I guess I just have to question, from what I've played with on Bixby, I guess I just don't see where this needs to be such a precious part of the phone experience. Like, I don't search for things with the camera.
You look at everything through your phone, right?
Well, I'm
Come on.
always just holding phone cameras up in
You
front of
hold your
me
phone up
everywhere I
every day.
go.
You got to walk around and do this, just go all over the place.
Because I mean, it makes a lot of sense, like you were saying, that the idea of real-time visual translation for different languages, that's awesome. But that has already been working really well. I don't know that having yet another sort of branded Google Assistant Lens Bixby solution thing really elevates that experience significantly, unless it's just that branding exercise of, we'll call it something new so that people will go out and try it because it's a new service, and then they'll see that really this was just Google goggles all along, but it's just been phenomenally improved since the last time it had a proper brand name.
I mean, if there's anything that people want, it's time, it's response.
Right.
Seriously, like that's going to make it happen. So we'll see.
We'll see. I'll be really curious to see now what this means for competition, because I haven't been completely sold on Bixby as a standalone competitor to what Google is already doing with Android. So if this causes the two companies to fight more, then that's great.
Yeah, there's also a bunch of other I/O announcements, improvements to Assistant, photos, as well as a couple of nitty-gritty Android O stuff that you can check out on the site as well.
Yeah, the Android O stuff doesn't really seem like the needle's moved much from that very, very early developer preview that we wrote up.
I mean, so I'm going to try and see if I can do this little jig again, because and also the screen brightness on this. I have my Nexus 5 here running the second version of the preview.
You got it to set up? I mean, Tony's sending me angry emails right now, like, why haven't I installed it? And you're like, I haven't had time to sideload it, and it's I'm not getting the OTA.
So you're not getting the OTA? Because if you flashed a previous image, you're automatically signed out of the beta program. You have to sign back on going through the site.
All right,
and then
I'll go through that.
That's what I had to do to get mine. And they switched it up. The dark theme's gone. Now it's white. And there's also, of course you got to change up the color. It's somewhat a little stuttery on my 5X. I'm sure that's not going to be a problem at all. But there are other little features like a notification dot. It's less annoying than having to see the number like on the app icon badge.
Right.
Having that grow, but you're able to actually just hold on the app icon on the home screen and be able to just individually act on those notifications. But you got the notification shade. Like, really? Come on.
I'm just the fact that you said that there is still no dark theme, that makes me so crazy cranky. I want a proper dark theme.
They changed everything. They changed all the UI elements from gray and black to white. Like that's
I don't care. I miss Holo theme. Holo theme was this great, low power dark theme. It was great for AMOLED screens. I switched over my Galaxy S8 almost instantly to a dark theme.
It got worse. That's what I said, basically.
But I want it, Jules. I want it. Give it to me.
That's all you need.
Lastly, just because I'm the camera nerd, what do you think about a dual camera Note 8 if we get an optical zoom? Do you really think that moves the needle on image processing at all? I kind of feel like people like the zoom on the iPhone, but it's not really a primary or...
I hope you're getting the geese. I hope you're...
Yeah, that sounds awesome. But yeah, I don't really think it's something that people on their iPhone 7 Pluses, like, they use it, I'm sure, but it's not like this major... I don't think many people regard it as being a major improvement to the camera.
It's not this big honking feature, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because of the
Well,
geese. Get it?
no, yeah, yeah.
Get it?
Hi. Hello.
It's a
My
pun.
name's Jules. Nice to meet you. Anyways, yeah, I'm not sure how much farther this takes us. I mean, three times. I was arguing originally for a four times lens on the iPhone 7 because I think that we would save enough between one and four just to get in and doing that variable zoom and whatnot. Uh, Huawei is making improvements. It's not. Uh, they're still now. I don't I don't know how to feel bringing this up, but their DxO Mark scores are still kind of they're pretty good, but they're a few points behind the Galaxy S8, which scored an 88. Uh, so, and with that, and that didn't change much from the S7 Edge. It didn't change at all, actually.
Yeah.
So, like, if this is going to,
Well, I'm a little less
I don't know.
concerned with DxO Mark scores just because they completely missed the significant lens flaring on the Pixel and still managed to give the Pixel their highest score of all time when lens quality is supposed to be one of their metrics. If we're gonna say it's image processing, then yeah, I can appreciate that. But I guess I'm just kind of I find it kind of curious that Zoom is becoming, so Apple went for zoom like reach, like zooming into your subject, whereas LG went for zooming wide. And I think if a lot of people were to compare the usefulness of a wide angle lens versus a zoomed in lens, I think more people would probably lean towards the wide angle lens because the software
I want
crop zoom is okay. And then you've got your normal field of view, and then you have this ultra wide field of view for getting more into each shot. I find it
I
kind of
want to
curious that Samsung followed Apple's move there.
I'm going to say a joke first, and then I'm going to actually be serious. I want a flexible telescoping lens so that it goes, zooms out of the module and goes all the way around so that you actually
Totally.
get the view that you want from wherever you
Yeah.
are. But even with just like if it's in module, you got motors to, inch it this way or inch it that way if you can't really, if you're trying to get a shot that you can't really, or even better, if you're trying to shoot out of a window
Yeah.
and the reflection of the light, it doesn't work out because it's reflecting too much of the interior. Um, that can really help. So I don't know. I mean, that's one of the little gimmicks that I can think of that can, well, I wouldn't say it has some value to it. It
Oh
has
no,
some value
I'm not.
to it.
I'm not saying there's no value, and there are definitely pros and cons for every solution. You touched on Huawei. The cons are there is no focal length flexibility at all. Like you've got your one field of view with those two camera sensors, but the pro would be I think you've got some of the most photographic image processing I've ever seen when you merge the output from those two sensors. There is definitely a call for having a higher quality when zoomed in, but unless Samsung has figured out a way to give us a longer lens on a comparable image sensor without degrading image quality, then we're kind of stuck in the same situation that we were with the iPhone 7, where once you don't have perfect light, the phone is already starting to struggle with that zoom sensor because it's a smaller sensor so that it can take up less space, and you can kind of gimmick the focal length of the lens to make sure that you're getting as much reach as you're advertising. And that's where I think LG actually did something really cool with the G6, where the wide angle and the standard view have the same sized image sensors. And so you face a little less degradation of your image when you switch back and forth between normal field of view and wide field of view. So that's just kind of what I mean. Like, I think wide seems to be the more flexible addition. And that's where I'm kind of curious. Like, if Samsung really does do this with the Note 8, why I think it's kind of interesting. Like, they would follow in Apple's footsteps instead of looking at maybe some of the other consumer research, or put it in front of focus groups or something like that. All the funnier
Yeah,
focus groups on photography.
focus groups on photography.
Yeah,
Autofocus groups on photography.
right.
No, like I mean, I don't really know where to go in terms of just focal lengths here. I mean, we got wide, we got, I mean, the only real solution, I guess, for me is, you find a way to put some distance between the sensor and the lens, which is already hard to do as it is, so
Yeah.
that you can make those, you don't have, you can be able to produce a flatter lens and still get a fairly wide field. But other than that, zooming in is I don't know how to advance. It takes more thought than just trying to talk about it on a podcast at
Yeah.
1 a.m. in the morning.
Well, and especially when we're speculating about rumors, because I mean there are other solutions too.
Already, like it's just and it's pretty straightforward so far. So unless Samsung decides to keep one little detail very closely guarded, we're going to know about it eventually anyways. So
well, and we're gonna say that it's a guarantee that this is gonna have a quad camera array for zoom, wide, and dual lens photography with an 8K screen and a 16,000 milliamp hour battery. So you heard it here first, folks. Galaxy Note 8 will be
over
the phone.
9,000.
It's over 9,000. You heard it here first, folks. The Galaxy Note 8 will be the phone of the future today.
I'm gonna throw my V20 out in the ocean right after this call.
As soon as we're done, I'm gonna take all of the other phones in my collection of review devices and run over them with my car.
With your little Miata.
I don't have a Miata. I kind of wish I had a Miata. That would be a fun car to drive. But we also had one of the big news stories this week coming, the HTC U11. We got our first hands-on from Mr. Jaime Rivera. And I think it's time that we brought on our special guest to unpack that news. So if you want to wrap us up here, Jules, we can let you go find shelter out in that New York.
I shall. And to do that, all I have to say is you can find details on these stories and more. Just go to pocketnow.com, search the podcast section for this episode and its rundown. Also, check out Jaime Rivera. He hosts, as said before, the Pocketnow Daily. No, you talked about him for the U11. So I get to say that.
Well, but yeah, we can still say that he's the host of the Daily show.
Of the Pocketnow Daily. And you can find that on our YouTube page as well. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is my pleasure to introduce you to the gentleman that's on your screen right now if you're watching the video version of this, or the voice you're about to hear if you're listening to the audio show, and that's one Mr. Joel Heslop. Joel, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Jules, thank you. Juan, Jules actually is not with us right now, but thank you so much for having us. I'm happy to be here and joining you and the Pocketnow family here. It's been fun keeping up with you guys and your channel personally, and I'm excited to be jumping in with some video work with you guys.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up that way, talking about family, because we've been having a lot of conversations internally at Pocketnow as to how we could expand that family. And when we were in those early conversations, you were absolutely an individual that I had at the top of my list. I've been a big fan of the work that you've been doing on your own personal channel, so I wanted to bring you in to help us fill in some of the gaps in our lineup. From some of the products that we haven't been able to review. We've already given you a phone that you're going to be posting a review at the end of the week, right?
Yes. This is your quick update. If you saw that, then you know. If you're watching the video, then you know which one it was. Other than that, you gotta wait for it.
Yeah, so drop a comment. The first person who can identify that phone, you get no prizes. We're not giving anything away.
In the comments.
Yeah, you get a virtual high five from Joel, hey. and definitely hold on to that. I think that high five will probably be worth something in the coming years.
It could be.
So we're going to be expanding on the HTC U11. You've had a chance to check out some of the videos and stuff that have been put out on this. Jaime actually did our primary hands-on. But before we get to that, I wanted to take just a minute to sort of talk about your background a little bit, where you're coming from, help introduce you to our audience. Like I said, and I mean this, I really liked going through your channel and seeing that you weren't afraid to be critical There were phones that I could tell that you liked, but that you were still trying and working to make sure that you were showing off the pros and cons of a specific device. I mean, you use a V20, so I know you've got good taste, obviously.
Hey. Yeah, I've said this before, but Juan was right when they were originally announcing it. Pocketnow covered a lot on the V20, and I was between a couple phones, and hey, video reviews work because Juan convinced me to go to the V20, and I haven't looked back. It has been great. So coming high praise when I hear that he likes my videos, high praise to him for his work with Pocketnow and Some Gadget Guy.
But more than anything else, one of the things that really struck me, and if you can, Joel, just scooch just a teeny touch to your right. Perfect.
Yep.
I know we've got some light there. I know you're going to be a little bright, but just because I like to move around too.
In on the video.
I was like, I was starting to lose you on my side there, to your left. But one of the things that I was really happy to see on your channel, in addition to you not being afraid to be a little critical, and you, I think you taking your responsibility and commentary very seriously, was that you were also just approaching it with some enthusiasm. And we've had conversations about this offline. Just, I get why there's a certain vibe in tech reviews, but I'm a little tired personally of kind of crafting around the notion of everything's cool and chill, and I'm kind of over it because I see all these things all over the place, and I'm super tech savvy, so whatevs. And I personally want to show people when I'm excited or show people when I'm concerned, like that little bit more emotion as we're talking about these things. And I really liked that you had a sense of that with the community you were building on your own channel.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I will say though, on my resume, it does say cool and super tech savvy. So you got me on that. No, but I love what you're saying there. I love as much as I can to go through every comment, talk and connect with people that are watching my videos. I really want to throw off that vibe of this uber tech reviewer and just say, hey, this is my experience. This is what I see. The goods, the bads. If I'm getting bad battery life, I'm not going to, show this silly thing. Well, I got 10 hours of screen on time. No, I got 3.5 on a good, I want to make sure that people are seeing the experience that I am. And if it's different for someone else, let's have a conversation about it. And, I'll use the tech expertise that I've learned over the years and things like that to walk through with people and hopefully give them a better experience. They can help make some good informed decisions, and we'll have some fun along the way. So that's how I approach it. And so it's fun having conversations like this and getting to talk through new phones and new devices and really just jumping in together. That family aspect, I always want to look at the positive and then see a critical eye of what we can maybe improve with those things and, give people the best experience they can with watching a video review.
Right on. And I've also just sort of appreciate the fact that I think you bring a pretty high level of expertise to your video editing. So that helps it too, that I think your videos look good in addition to being well thought out.
I enjoy that. And part of that was college background of doing video editing in college and just more picking it up in the last couple of years, just digging in and chopping and swiping and putting things together. It's fun. I enjoy it. I more enjoy being on camera than editing, but I do like crafting a good story and script and just seeing it from start to finish and then really being like, this is my work. Let it be free. And sending it out to the world and getting those first likes and comments and people appreciating like, oh, I like that shot. I'm like, I worked on that a long time. Thank you. That one took a while. That edit took a while. Like stupid edits that I don't need to spend this long on them, but I'm like, it'd be really cool to have this tracking in here or this edited in, No,
I was just wrapping up a video this afternoon going like, I don't really need to do this. I don't need to do this. And yet I still couldn't help I've got to get this macro shot. I've got to get up here and I need my action figures in the background. It's visually interesting for the frame. And I totally appreciate that.
They're everywhere. That's one thing you'll notice in videos for sure.
Well, yeah, I think that's another reason why I had to bring you on too. It's like to complement my Transformers collection, I needed some legit sci-fi and Star Wars in there. So
the Star Wars and Zelda are the majority in here, but there's a plethora of random things around the room that people will pick up on and comment, be like, "Oh, you like Dragon Ball Z, or oh, you like this?" I'm like, "Hey."
All right, so I don't want to jump the tracks too much, but Dragon Ball, Krillin has got to be the most powerful human in the show, right?
I would think so. Yeah. I mean, as far as humans go,
Because it's either like Krillin or Tien, and I don't think
yeah,
Tien.
it's definitely Yamcha.
No.
Just kidding.
All right, that's deep enough. We don't need to go any dorkier on our anime conversation right there. I think enough people have seen my Vegeta wall scroll up in the side of my room, and that's
on this
enough
shelf
for-
over here that you can't see off. I have a couple Dragon Ball Z figures there.
So let's jump in. So I really wanted to chat U11 with you, especially knowing you're a V20 owner, and one of the things that I think sold you on V20, like I can see you're wearing your Seni cans. You know, like I've got the 599s. Are those the 598s?
598. Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
you know, as part of our gadget personal area network of accessories and stuff, I know you have an appreciation for higher quality audio, that kind of multimedia experience, and a company. I think the company that was most responsible for elevating the conversation was HTC. And so there are some steps that I think are really interesting about the U11, and I think there are a couple moves here by HTC which might be a bit concerning. In kind of going through a lot of these first impressions videos or first hands-on videos, what did you think of the? Well, first of all, let's start with the design, and then from there, I think we can move out to some of the other hardware features. But the look of the phone, this seems to be HTC's new design language. Is this something that you think is going to resonate with the smartphone buying public?
That's hard to see. Yeah, with the HTC U Ultra, that was kind of their dipping their feet in the water, so to speak, with it. And they had some weird hardware choices with that. So we'll put that aside. That's not their flagship. This is. So that aside, this is how they're moving forward. And I mean, the glass and the gloss is a big deal. And that's, we see that now G6 and the S8. And I mean, it's interesting. I haven't gotten to hold the different colorways, but like that red yellow one where you can kind of turn it and it like looks like a solar flare almost, like the different the color ways how they change. I think it's an interesting approach, and it's kind of flashy. But it'll be interesting to see. I mean, they're definitely fingerprint magnets, and will be a bit of a bear to keep clean. But hey, if they feel good in the hand, and they're, I think they look solid enough, and most people would enjoy a device that looked like this for sure. I don't think the looks are going to turn anybody away.
No, I definitely don't think the looks are going to turn anyone away. I'm curious if we've actually managed to find the peak of this glass back experiment, though, where from all of the different experiments, like you've seen an Honor 8 where it's got like those sort of different reflective surfaces to make like laser lines that cut through the back, or a phone like, I really think the Note 7 was a terrific example of design for glass back. Obviously, the Galaxy S8 sort of following in that footsteps. But now getting to this sort of color-infused, purposely mirrored surface.
Yeah.
Have we kind of peaked on both like the look and the practicality? This is a design achievement. I think this is something which looks really stunning, and yet I know this is something that I'm gonna probably not enjoy holding. And as soon as I have access to one, I'm gonna be throwing it into a case.
Right. Yeah, a case or skin or something. Just because I feel like it is a big deal. Well, HTC's always kind of been big on their design and their manufacturing with the aluminum body originally. How they were huge on that, and they were like how it looks, how it feels, and so they wanted to push that forward, and they've kind of done the same thing over the years. And so this departure here, this big trend with the glass is a big deal, but the mirrored is, I don't know. It's
pretty
really
intense.
cool for videos. Really cool for videos, but on everyday use, it's like, is this going to be what I really want on my phone? You're totally right. I would put a case on that bad boy right away.
Yeah.
Because
I think it's really funny. The notion is like it looks really cool, But even in talking with Jaime, and a part of his video was like, this thing is really difficult to shoot video.
Yeah.
So even being like really good for videos,
just like,
it's almost like, again, it's the same thing that I've said about the Galaxy S8. It's like, I just want to put it in a glass case under museum lighting.
Just look at it.
Right, exactly. Like this is
Just put it up on my
absolutely
shelf.
not the phone I think I would recommend to my wife as her purse sort of eats gadgets for breakfast.
Right.
I'd maybe not, maybe not recommend this one. Actually, right now she's most interested in the BlackBerry, so we're gonna see if she's gonna take my review unit for a week.
See, that's why like the Key One, the V20, other phones, sure they don't look great, but they're functional, and I can throw it around and not have any issue. Like I know it's gonna do what it says it's gonna do, and not let any flashiness get in the way. And I kind of the practicality is a big deal to me. I mean, sure, if it looks nice, that helps. But we'll see if that'll be able to stray people. It's going to be a hard sell, I think, because it's a solid device and there's lots of great things going for it. But with the S8 and the G6 in this crowded space right now, is a mirrored finish. Is that the biggest differential? I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at stats, but that doesn't always tell the in-hand feel and how the device is going to run. I love HTC's launcher and what they do with their custom overlay, but I think it's real tasteful and simple compared to TouchWiz and some others. But we'll see. I'm always excited about new phones. So
and before we completely leave this notion of design, I mean, we can say like a phone like the V20 is, I think it's sort of diesel truck charmingly ugly. You know
exactly. There's nothing good. Yeah.
But I look at a phone like the Key One, and one of the things that I really like about the Key One is the feel in the hand and the look of the phone. It feels like it was made for grown-ups, right?
Yeah.
It feels like it's designed to go with a nice attaché or a high-quality corporate bag of some kind. The cases that BlackBerry picked, I mean, people heard me talk about this with Stephen Shank on a previous episode of the podcast, but they partnered with Toomey, which is a company that's very well known, respected bag manufacturer, and that's the branding that would be on the back of your Key One. And it was something that even my wife responded to, where it's a phone that recalls a gadget like the Note 4. The Note 4 got panned for not being the sexiest phone, but it was metal and a grippy back, which had sort of an executive feel to it. And so the more I start looking at glass as an experiment, and I don't want to trivialize this, like, oh, it's a phone for girls or something. I don't mean that at all. Well, those damn millennials.
I'm one.
Technically, I'm right on the cusp, which makes me curious as to who's getting to decide that calendar.
Right, exactly.
But when we're looking at design, can we go too flashy?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, and the 3D Gorilla Glass that edges over the corners. I would like to. I want to see how that feels in the hand, because that looks solid. It makes it look, like it melts in. It's not a curved edge necessarily like the S8 is, but it is the form factor lends to that. And to me, I like the S8, and I think it feels great in the hand. But this could be just me, but I like the Note 7 better in the way it felt in the hand. It was a little more subtle of a curve, but it had the curve on the back and on the front. Yeah. But not as harsh as the S8 is. And that was kind of like the good sweet spot between it. Not too much of that, but each their own. Maybe people absolutely love that. But I'm fine with 16.9. 18.5 by 9 is cool, and I'm sure a lot more phones will do that. But the the U11 still 16.9, correct?
Yeah, it's still going to be a 16 by 9, and I'll be really curious to see what other companies pick up on that. But real quick now, let's jump into. Let me see if I can find just the specs here that we can put up on camera. So we're looking at a Snapdragon 835, 4 gigabytes of RAM, 64 gigabytes of storage with micro SD card expansion, a 3,000 milliamp hour battery, a new 12 Ultra Pixel 3 camera. I'll be really curious to dig into that. 16 megapixel front-facing camera, IP67, water resistant, and quick charge 3.0. So these all feel like the requisite flagship specs for a phone this year.
Definitely. They even bumped down to the 1.7 aperture to even less.
That's right.
With the larger pixels, and that's been HTC's thing for a long time. Even way back in the one day when they were like, "Oh, you can get by with 4 megapixels because they're ultra pixels." Everybody was like, "Can you?"
I was completely on that experiment. I was completely on board. It was for me though that year. The top two phones were the Lumia 920 and the HTC One M7 in that order.
Yeah.
Until the next year when my One M7 fell prey to the purple haze. And then I was like, no, I'm done with you. This is dead to me.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Oh, that was such a bummer because they were getting really, really good shots with it.
Yeah.
I was gonna buy. I was actually gonna buy it around the time that they all started getting purple haze, and I was like, never mind. I don't need that.
It was shocking to me that I had a phone that operated great for about a year, and then just went like completely Barney the dinosaur on me. It was just terrible.
Yeah, well, and that's a good testament to HTC. They had a super solid devices with those, and so I'm rooting for them because they've had a little bit of a kerfuffle, so to speak. A little bit of a bump in the road here, and this is looking like a good solid entry. Yeah. I don't think they took too many risks to go over the top with it, but they definitely checked some good marks here for a really solid flagship that should get some attention. So yeah,
I think it's interesting because we've also been having this conversation with LG, and I think LG has maybe been a little bit more successful in the transition. So from the G4 era of LGs to now, we've gone through some weird experiments, some odd design choices, and we arrive at the G6. And the G6, when you hold it in your hand, is a phone that feels like it makes sense. HTC, it's interesting because I don't think HTC's had quite the same kind of teething pain. Like they didn't have a weird modular phone.
They didn't have a really hard stop. They just had just a slowdown, I guess. Just a mediocre couple phones.
Well, I think they were definitely affected. Like in HTC and LG were both, I think, ravaged by the Qualcomm 810 series of processors.
The overheat, yep.
Yeah. So the One M9, from a design standpoint, is a killer phone. It's a great phone, but it's wildly inconsistent performer. Same thing with the LG G Flex 2. Both of those phones being out early, using that chipset, very, like moments where those things are screamers, and then most of the time the phone is throttling itself so that you don't get the full benefit of that performance. But their response, the HTC 10 was on point. And I think we had just gone through so many. The 1A9 was another sort of just mediocre halfway step into trying to make a mid-ranger. And then the U Ultra, just an odd phone to release. So we don't have it doesn't seem like we have a lot of confidence in the brand right now, especially from the carrier standpoint. This isn't a phone that's being widely embraced right now. It seems like the only carrier that's on board is Sprint for getting this phone into showrooms outside of that seemed to make you happy there.
I'm on Sprint, but it doesn't matter. One guy. They might get acquired by T-Mobile soon, but we'll see. It always seems.
Well, that could be great for a Sprint user, though, right?
Yeah, it could, because they could really get some more expansion. Although they are pushing right now. The LTE 5G, they're saying that they're going to be the first to expand out. Everyone's saying that though, but we'll see. each carrier has their big thing that they will be the big next, and they're going to get a new spokesperson that's going to crack on the other guy. And there's a big battle, but it wouldn't hurt to have three big leads instead of just the two big leads and then two minor leads.
Right.
You know, because T-Mobile is definitely growing and they're getting into that space, but AT&T and Verizon are just kind of overtaking things. But didn't mean to derail things there.
Oh, no. Because, you know, this was also one of the other top stories about the U11 was this sort of carrier, because it's not even like a carrier exclusivity. It's sort of akin to what we went through with the Pixel. You know, Verizon was the official only carrier exclusive place to stock the phone, but then T-Mobile would also like, well, you could just go buy a Pixel and use it on T-Mobile and we'll cut you a deal. And
to a lot of normal consumers for sure.
Right. So
I think people talk to me personally. They're like, "Oh no, I can't get the Pixel. It's only on Verizon." I'm like, "Oh
man,
wrong."
This I'll be curious to see. Can HTC see one of the biggest problems? And we've cracked on LG a lot for this too, but HTC is maybe even worse at this. Is can they get that message out to consumers? It's not enough anymore to make a let's say the U11 is the best phone of the year. That maybe we get it and it turns out that this is just an amazing combination of technologies, of hardware, of software, and somehow this phone is like the absolute best all-rounder. All consumers should be using it. Can they actually get that message out to consumers? You know,
it's hard because Samsung and Apple just kill it with their marketing. It's just destroy other people. And HTC, you know, they had Robert Downey Jr. for, was that the 9 or the 10?
Oh God, it was so bad.
And then LG had Jason Statham, like for the 5. They're not doing well. Hire me. I'll do something like
Well, no. They can't now because you're a part of the Pocketnow family, and that would be a
right. Okay, so I'll moonlight.
I'm sure they couldn't possibly pay you well enough to leave Pocket.
No, but it is. I'm just like, who's making these decisions, and like, how is this passing through sometimes? Because I'm like, these are some silly things, and Samsung's just crushing it, and Apple's just, I would say Samsung has probably the best phone marketing. Like Apple just has the brand that wins right now, just the solid brand, and they have more people. But boy, do I ever see people switching over to Samsung in droves just because of the marketing. And they're like, oh, that display. Oh, you know, it's what, you know, so especially with the 7 that was waterproof, that S7, and that's when a lot of people were like, oh, the Galaxy phone is a great device. It's waterproof. And that was like, and glass. Oh, so that's when I saw a lot of regular consumers say, oh yeah, this Samsung Galaxy thing could be an iPhone alternative.
Totally. Well, and I mean, it really did. Like Samsung, to their credit, actually did put themselves out there. You know, this was a threshold that now every other manufacturer is stepping up to match.
Sure.
It used to be like we would get these really weird Japanese one-off phones because Japan has different regulations on things like device durability. So, you know, Japan got the LG V34, and they were the only ones to get that phone. Yeah, because it was water resistant. And so now I think manufacturers are sort of getting hip to the fact that, like, this is something that consumers want to pay for around the world, not just because the government told them they had to.
There was a bunch of people that were commenting on my video saying, Joel, please review the LG 34. I'm like, I can't. Like, I guess I can import it, but
well, and even for us, like, you know, we've got pretty good relationships with different, you know, PR people and stuff. And you're like, no, it's a Japanese only phone. And you're like, well, people watch our videos in Japan. And they're like, nope, nope, not gonna happen. So before we leave this off, I wanted to get your thoughts as another fellow V20 owner. I'm gonna see. I'm scanning through the video right now. So no headphone jack. HTC, the company that brought us boom sound, killer speakers, and really high quality headphone audio, is now playing the USB-C audio game. And I was just wondering what your thoughts on that might be, given your really expensive Sennheiser headphones that you're wearing right now.
Single tear coming down my face right now. You can't see people, but it's happening. No, yeah, I know it's somewhat inevitable at this point with the given fact that how mobile is going and so many manufacturers ditching it. But I really thought HTC would hold on to it longer, just because the innovations with the boom sound and their DAC and everything sounding so good. And when they first didn't put the front boom sound speakers, a little of my heart just fell a little bit. And then whenever I saw them do this, I was like, oh, HTC. I mean, one redeeming fact is they do have the USB-C noise canceling headphones in the box, which okay, that's nice, and I'm looking forward to a real audio review on those from you. But I don't know how good the DAC is in here. If it's still as good as the 10 was, that's something to look forward to. But man, that's a bummer. I really want them to hold on to it. And I think there will be people that will be a little bummed out about it. It's interesting.
My concern here is that this is an idea that's potentially one generation of Android ahead of its time.
Yeah.
Because we know from the Android O beta, some of the news that's been coming out of Google I/O, and then just like we've been working with some of the developer previews on Android O, Pocketnow behind the scenes. We haven't done a lot of coverage on it just because there actually hasn't been a ton to cover as of yet. But one of the focuses of Android O seems to be finally delivering on the promises of Jelly Bean, of improving Android audio. And one of the major, I mean, obviously they're looking at Bluetooth, including aptX and aptX HD and Sony's codecs for wireless audio.
There you go. Okay.
But a major problem with Android has always been its USB audio support. You know, this Linux kernel is fine. It should be fine for supporting USB I/O for audio, but it just really hasn't been implemented well on an Android level. Some phones have executed it better than others. And so we're fingers crossed again that Android O will be the operating system that enables this. If that's true, then we can finally start moving over. Like, for example, you're wearing a pair of Sennheiser headphones. I would love to take the DAC out of the hands of smartphone manufacturers, where some of them do an amazing job, but most of them just put in the bare minimum, this will drive an audio signal to regular consumer headphones. And just imagine what we could do with a Sennheiser-designed USB DAC for their headphones. And all we're waiting on is something that will work universally, so that it's not like it'll work on some Samsung phones and some, Huawei's. It has to be consistently supported across all of Android, or else USB-C audio is a non-starter. And I think this is going to be a small misstep for HTC if this works like the HTC Bolt or the HTC U Ultra, where their USB-C headphones only work with that phone. Right. They don't work with another phone, or they don't work with my laptop.
So buggy.
It's kind of a waste.
Yeah, and that is frustrating. And maybe HTC knows something about Fuchsia that we don't.
Yeah, that'd be hilarious. They're building this for an operating system that's still in like the GitHub phase.
That definitely not why. But yeah, that when I heard the headphones didn't work with other things, I was like, how hard is that? Well, that's so a little bit different, but USB-C in general, that's why the Surface laptop that Microsoft came out with, the reasoning they said they didn't put USB-C on it was because of the confusion of cables that people have for charging cables. And they didn't want somebody to grab a USB-C cable and throw it in the bag and it be a 2.0 and not be able to power their Surface laptop. And so they said, we're doing the proprietary Surface charging cable, and you get one USB 3.1 A. And you're like, wait, what?
I feel it was a
So
draconian response to the potential of consumer confusion.
right. So I think they were like, let's pat ourselves on the back for our greatness. I don't know,
Right.
but no, it's true. There's just a lot of confusion, and USB-C is definitely the future. It's so great, but they really need to fix the playing field with audio, with syncing, with just Thunderbolt. Everything with it could be so much more streamlined.
What's frustrating here is that I think that we've got the right beginnings for a spec from USB-C, from the consortium of USB. I'm a huge fan of Thunderbolt. Unfortunately, it looks like Thunderbolt's maybe not going to win as a proper standard for our computers because of USB-C on peripherals, which to me doesn't make any sense. If I were Microsoft, I would say, well, we've got Thunderbolt ports on this computer, and they'll work with anything USB or Thunderbolt, so it shouldn't matter. That would be my solution, but I'm not a multi-billion-dollar company. I think this is where I'm probably more inclined to throw shade at HTC and Motorola, where they have come up with proprietary solutions that use a standard plug. And that, to me, is one of the most frustrating aspects of talking about a phone like the Bolt or the Moto Z. We have a standard, but there's no interoperability. So if we're going to tag Apple for getting rid of the headphone jack and like, oh, I can't take my lightning connector ear pods and plug them into my MacBook. Well, there's no port on a MacBook which accepts lightning. It's very clear that the ear pods will not work on your MacBook. But if I have a USB-C port or a Thunderbolt port on my laptop and I plug in my HTC headphones and they don't work, why? Why would you do that to me? And now it's like, I've got to carry my headphones for my laptop and my headphones for my phone, or I've got to invest in some kind of wireless solution, which people may or may not be inclined to do.
Well, I thought it was so funny right when the iPhone 7 came out, no headphone jack, and they're like, included headphones in the box can't be used with your MacBook.
Yeah.
Breaking news. And you're like, duh. Duh. Lightning port. They don't have a lightning port. It's USB-C. They're not the same thing. But I just thought it was funny. A bunch of videos and things were like, okay, rant time. And I'm like, that's not quite the same.
That's not a rant situation.
Well,
and especially that I've yet to see an HTC or a Motorola include both headphones and 3.5 millimeter adapter. And again, you're rocking a great pair of headphones. There's no reason why you should have to buy different headphones or even use, like if they came included in the box, when a 50-cent cable, right? Maybe it's $1 dongle will get you plugged in. So I'm hoping that HTC recognizes that there are other things that people are concerned with. I mean, you can give me great earbuds in the box, and I will be happy to have great earbuds. The Bolt earbuds are very nice, but I don't like them as much as I like my in-ear monitors. I don't like them as much as I like my Sennheisers. I don't like them as much as I don't even like them as much as I like my V-Modas, and I'd rather use my V-Modas. And if I can't do that, then you've given me a legitimate reason to consider a competing device.
Yeah, and that's a bummer because I mean, if you're like a tech reviewer and you have a wall of 15 headphones, and you're like
bored at work style.
I was gonna say, Thunder E. You have all of those on the back behind you, and you're like, I can use one of these. You're like, yes, I'm using these again today. When I go out.
And I know my usage is not typical because I have earbuds that I like for music. I have earbuds that I like for gaming. Yeah. I have headphones that I like. I have a pair of headphones that I like for movies. Because movies are mixed in a very very different way, especially action films. So I'm not expecting people to use or to accessorize their phones like I am. But the thing I can point to is to say, like, when I'm using my phone with this pair of headphones, I'm having this kind of an experience. And so whatever you feel is most important to you, maybe that's how you might want to buy it. If you pick up an HTC, you can't do any of this.
Right.
and that to me
Right.
is worrisome for a company that
Maybe they'll sell you a dongle like
well, even if they want to sell me one, I
price.
just don't know that there is one. And I might be wrong there, and someone will absolutely correct me in the comments. I was not aware of a good HTC dongle solution. So I don't know if they're using additional pins on USB-C to carry an audio signal from a DAC that's in the phone. I don't know if a DAC is supposed to be built into the headphones and into a dongle adapter like Apple does. I just don't know. And that's one of those things like I would be very curious to see. I'll be very curious to see how the U11 handles that.
Accomplish that for sure. Oh, the dongle life. It is
the dongle
real.
life. It's legit these days. We're definitely all sort of in the same boat there. So, Joel, final thoughts. HTC U11. What are you thinking? Is this the direction HTC should be building upon, or do you think we might see another sort of experiment from them, kind of like we did after LG went from the G5 to the G6?
Well, it's tough to see because we definitely want to see how the market takes it, but I think it's going to be hard for them with the G6 and S8. This could be the most incredible phone that HTC's ever produced, and it get lost a little bit in the crowd.
Yeah.
I've already seen some tech reviewers saying, I don't know if I'm going to pick this up, and I'm like, ooh, that's harsh when you have these big markets. So we'll see. I think that it could really be a big win for them if they get a really solid device and it's going to check the marks. And from everything I've seen, it looks great. But is it going to get lost in the crowd like the 10 did?
Yeah.
Like that was a great device, and I see people doing their 1-year reviews and like, this is still a great device. You can still get it really cheap. But it's hard when you're up against such a great competition. So it'll be interesting for me to see 6 months from now, 3-4 months from now, if they decide, okay, let's scrap that. All glass wasn't a great idea, or this wasn't a great idea. Let's go with the 18.9 and make a more sleek phone. I'm not a definitive answer for you on this one because it's so unclear right now.
Yeah, and I definitely felt that way about the 10.
I think this will be a little bit of an iteration on them testing out if this is what's best for them, and then they make a change in the future. That's my leaning, is this is an iteration. They'll test it out and move forward with it. I'm rooting for them. Come on, HTC. Bring back the headphone jack. I'll root more for you.
Well, I was definitely feeling that way about the 10. When I went to revisit it, I got to do the After the Buzz, and I think it really was one of the most underrated phones of last year.
It really was.
It was
so
such
a
great performer all over.
That's the thing. You've said this before. I think you might have even said it in your S8 Plus talk, is like a phone does everything well, but like, what is its main goal in the phone? And with the S8, it's kind of like, look at this display. You want to buy it. You want to buy it. And with the HTC, 110, it was like, great DAC, the stereo speakers that they have with the earpiece and that sound good. They sound solid. Everything was really good about it, but it wasn't like wowing you with this one big thing.
Yeah.
And it was really similar to the M9 in a lot of ways with design. And so it was like, people didn't really take to it the same way. But man, if you just want to recommend like a good phone to people, that would be a great one to do still today, I would say. Because I'm sure you can pick it up pretty cheap at this point. I've seen some budget clearance on it recently. So
yeah, totally. Well, Joel, I want to thank you for jumping in, man. This was a great chat, and we'll definitely we'll definitely be looking to have you on more regularly. Your first video, again, we're kind of keeping that phone under wraps, but your first video is going to be out on Friday, right?
Yeah, I'm finishing the edit and sending it out. Willing that all the powers that be think it is a good edit. It might be little bit later than that if some other things get changed around. So we'll see with that.
Yeah.
As long as the edits go through.
I'll be one of the people critiquing that edit. So you better bring your A game. Don't slack off now that I've been saying all these nice things about you.
Well, starting over.
Back to the drawing board.
Because it's all on the timeline, and there's a few little bit more chops down for time mostly. The content's all there, so
glad to hear it. And people can catch your Twitter handle is at Joel Heslop.
Yeah, just my name, and then just HESLOP is the last name, and Twitter, Instagram, all that fun stuff.
And I'm also gonna throw out just that vote that people should go out and check your personal channel. Just so they can get a sense of what you're going to be bringing to Pocketnow, because I'm hoping to have some solid videos from you up regularly, and I want people to know what it is that you bring to the table, because I like your style, and anyone who says otherwise is a fascist and a communist and has no business being on the internet.
They
Fake
probably
news.
like Yamcha.
No, those Yamcha fans.
What's happening?
Ne'er-do-wells. That was a fun chat. I'm really excited to be bringing Joel on this team. I think he's going to be a good fit here and help us kind of shake up the energy. So I hope you're all going to give him a warm welcome with his first video review out, hopefully the end of this week. There you have it, folks. Another episode of the Pocketnow Weekly has come and gone. This show is over, but the conversation continues on Twitter, where you can find Jules as @PointJules. Joel is at Joel Heslop, and I am, of course, humbly at Some Gadget Guy. Pocketnow is around the web on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Google+, YouTube, and our home site, pocketnow.com. Shows like this cannot exist without your support. Sharing the weekly with your friends who love mobile technology, and by dropping reviews on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and wherever podcast reviews can be left. Because once again, we would not have this show if it weren't for our listeners and subscribers who have kept us on the air since 2012. The Pocketnow Weekly will be back next week with all kinds of technology goodness, so make sure you tune back in.